social media can be considered like the third person in the relationship based off of its impact, because of how much attention people give to it or give their attention to it, and also how much influence it has on expectations.
Let's go. Today, we're here to talk about love and relationships. I have with me Mrs. Beverly Andre. I had to put my hair behind my ear.
Come on, ear. Well, I ain't got it, but you know.
Who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's also a relationship coach. She's an author, and she is the founder of Be Heart counseling services and
therapy for
couples. And she's been featured all over. She's known as your favorite family therapist, and she's been featured in Cosmopolitan. She's done HuffPost, InStyle, all the magazines. People centered their lives around love and romantic relationships. For some people, it defines their entire life. You know, for some women, they define success by being able to get married. Or for those people who, you know, whatever stage or phase of life you're in, your romantic relationship provides some kind of security for you. And it's the topic on social media. It's like everybody and their mother has like an opinion on
everybody
love, you know? And there are all these memes. They have meme therapy now because memes are trying to tell you like how you should be and what you should do. So we know she's born in Florida.
I am.
And she's of Haitian descent. And you know, I love a Caribbean girl.
Because we're the best.
And so, yeah, and then you moved to New York. You started your practice there. And now she's recently moved to Texas. She's married and she has a little fur baby.
Sherlock.
Yeah, Sherlock.
Yeah.
She reads a lot, which is my kind of people. So she's here to talk about love and relationships, to guide us and to just give us the information. So I wanted to start by demystifying love in some kind of way, which I know is a tall ask because love is so very big and abstract and it's not a one size fit all. It doesn't look like, you know, any one specific thing, and it can look different for all different types of people. How do you identify love? Or if you were to attempt to have a definition or a way of, or parameters, what would it look like?
I feel that love is the manifestation of how you perceive yourself to the world.
Okay.
That however I look at myself, if I love myself, right, and I embody it and I appreciate the things about me, then the way in which I will see the world will be from that lens. It will literally manifest from me to the world. And I think one of like what you were saying about demystifying love is that one aspect of it is that it's all external,
right?
You know, and that your first experience with love is with yourself. Like think about like a baby when they're starting to like learn their body and they're like, oh my gosh, I have toes. It's that wonderment. It's that, oh, I'm so amazed. Like, what is this, right? It starts from you first, and then it goes out to your parents and the people who are in your life. And so if I had to conceptualize it, I really feel like it's how I see myself,
right?
How I respond to myself, how I perceive myself, and then how it manifests out into the world.
Right. And so for someone who, let's say, starting at the place of wanting to find love, how do you advise them? How do you go looking for love?
So I have a more curious stance with that, right? Because I'm like, okay, well, what does love look like for you?
Right.
Like, is it safety? Is it comfort? Is it romantic? Is it sexy? So if that's what you're looking for, is there evidence for it already being here? Is there evidence in it inside of you? Do you feel sexy? Do you feel like you romanticize yourself and you love on yourself? Do you feel safe within yourself, right? Because if you don't experience it for yourself, you can't recognize it outwardly.
Right.
How can I know what a safe emotional relationship looks like if I don't have that with myself, or I don't have that with like the core people that surround me? Most of the time when people say, I'm looking for love, they're talking about a romantic partner.
Yeah.
Right? But love is so much bigger than just to center it to a romantic partner. It's evidence in all your types, all of the relationships in your life.
Yeah. I went through my own journey with, like, quote unquote, finding love. And that was a 2.5 year of just being single, really focusing on who I wanted to be and that kind of thing. And to your point, during that time, I was like, okay, well, the romantic love that I'm looking for isn't here right now, but I want to be loved and I want to feel love. And so then I started pouring that love into the relationships around me. And I started asking the questions of, like, what is my relationship with my mom? If I say I want love, what is my relationship with my mom? What's my relationship with my best friends, with my godchildren, with animals, or a stranger, or anybody? Like, how do I treat the cashier at the coffee shop that I go to all the time? Like, things like that. And I really went that wide to be able to understand myself and to see my own, like, blind spots. And I mean, there's no perfect journey to this, anyways. But yeah, to your point, I feel like people do narrow love down to this one area. And if you don't have a romantic partner in your life, they could almost forget that you can express or experience love through other people.
Some people don't even realize that they're living inside of, like, an abundance of love because they're trying to compare to a romantic partnership. You can't compare them. You can't compare the love that you have with your parents, to your partner, to your child, to your dog. It's just this whole pot of love, right? And yes, it's valid if you're sad and you miss the fact that you don't have a partner. All of that is valid, and that can still live inside the space of, I am still surrounded and experiencing an abundance of love. It's not either or. It's not a lack. It's just, okay, I don't have that yet.
Yeah. It's on its way.
It's on its way.
What we say. Yes. So then, do we believe in love at first sight?
I mean, and that still falls to the person's definition, right? Like, I think you can, for me, I think it's, interest at first sight.
Yeah.
Interest, infatuation, curiosity, all those feelings that contribute to you being able to love someone. But for me, and how I see love and experience love, that depth of love, that is not, oh, I see you in, like, we haven't had the experiences to cultivate what I believe love is. We haven't had the conversations. We haven't had enough opportunities to develop trust in one another for us, for whoever that person is, to say, yeah, I love you, in a way where it's not like love thy neighbor, right? Like, having a love of humanity, but like, I love you as someone who's in my life.
Right.
Right.
And you think that comes through experience?
Yeah. Because when it comes to building safety and emotional relationships, you need to have opportunities to test. Can I be safe with you? You need to have evidence of that person showing up. And even in the event that they don't show up in the way that you've imagined it, right? And that, oh, okay, this person made a mistake or whatever, that there's still evidence of them trying to do better, trying to learn better, trying to become better at love, to be in relationship with you.
So I started pretty broad, but I want to find out from you, like, what inspired you to get into this work? Because this is deep work. This is holding the hands of, like, couples, and you specialize in working with brown and black women and couples, helping them, formulate plans and just communicate through conflict and that kind of thing. Like, what inspired you to choose this line of work?
It's actually because of one of my former students. Yeah, so it's I haven't shared it too often, but in my previous career, I was an educator. I taught middle school English, and I had a kid who lost his father the summer before he came to our school, and had some behavior issues. Never in my class, but with other teachers. And he kept getting written up. And I just remember, like, he was just so angry, just always hungry, just angry. He hasn't expressed. he hasn't been able to process his feelings about the loss of his dad, and then his mom not being in a picture, and then having to go live with his paternal grandmother in a new school. It was just so much change in such amount of time, and I don't think that we didn't have the resources to really meet him where he's at. Obviously, his peoples weren't really going to be providing him with therapy, and eventually he got kicked out of our school. And so I just remember one time sitting in my classroom. It was like during one of my breaks, and I was just like, family therapy. Because in my mind, I was just like, okay, if somehow we were able to get the family help, right? If you can treat the home life, then he can do his role as a student better. That's how like I thought about it. I like backtrack. I'm like, well, maybe with like the grandma, so she can be a better guardian. Not even a better guardian, to help her heal in order to show up for the boys the way that they needed, so that they could heal. So it's like a top-down method. And then I end up finding a field, marriage and family therapy, right? And so just throughout my experiences and my trainings in school, and I was like, I'm definitely gonna be working with teens. And I started working with teens, and I realized, oh, I gotta work with the parents. Because the kids are the symptom of the environment of the home. There's no structure, or if the family system needs to be revamped, they're not in control of that. It's the parents. And so I started meeting with the parents more often. I was like, okay, this is the work. The work is with the parents. So you work with the couple, you heal the family. And even if they don't have children, there's other children who will see them. There's other people who will see how they interact. That's how you heal a generation. So that's how, and I'm a romantic. I love love. I'm a Disney girl. I'm a Disney girl. So I was just like, okay, it makes sense. And it felt like a natural fit for me. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't do couples. It's two people. But that magic of when they like find their rhythm and they communicate, and it's just like, yes. That's how I feel.
Like you're doing something so right in the world.
Oh my gosh. There's like, I had a couple graduate the other day, and I like teared up because I'm just like, man, it was a year and a half of work, and they came such a long way. And I got so emotional because I know, like, when they decide to have children, their kids will get to see that.
And you changed, well, you can get firsthand to seeing how the rest of their life has now changed, like a complete pivot. Almost.
And they weren't even married. So think about that. Wow. Committing to doing the work before you're even married.
That's beautiful. This might be a challenging question to answer, but if you were to identify like one thing that you've seen across all these couples,
I will say that people struggle to see that their partner has the best intentions, and that's still not enough. That if you're choosing to be in partnership with someone and there's issues, and you're talking to each other like you're adversaries versus allies, it's because you're struggling to give your partner the benefit of the doubt. And even though they're trying what their best looks like, it's not enough, because it's still problems that are occurring across the board. And one of the first questions I typically ask my couples are, out of everybody who's in this world, why did you pick that person to try and build a life with? Because if you can remember your why, then hopefully we can start figuring out, okay, what still keeps you here? What still keeps you hopeful? Because then hopefully that starts to shift the dynamic from adversary to allies, because it can't be you, the problem, and your partner. It's you and your partner against the problem, right? The issue is not you guys, it's the process. Let's focus on the process. Let's revamp the process. Because if I get into the habit of, okay, well, it's your partner's fault, then it becomes 2 against 1, right? How can someone feel motivated to do the work if they feel like they're to blame? Versus, okay, let's figure out why our interaction is so funky. I try to get my couples to realize it's a systems issue. It's a process issue, because you have to think about it. I can't remember his name. I think it's Stephen Covey or Convey. He talks about trust. The formula of trust is competency plus character. Is it a character issue? Do you believe that they don't have the desire or that they don't have the intent? It's usually not that. It's usually a competency issue, that they don't know how. So they're operating to the best of their ability of of how they know how to
know.
interact, right? And people will get into the habit of doing more of the same. Like, okay, well, let me do more. Let me talk more. Maybe they'll hear me. Let me repeat it over. Maybe she'll get it. And it's like, you can say it over and over again, and it's not sticking.
Right.
Because if that was the case and they would have got it the first time,
Right. Right.
it becomes a skills issue.
Right.
You don't know how.
Right. Having seen these types of things, having seen the blanket of issues that are out there, is there any particular mission or purpose that you feel like you have?
Yeah. Anybody can become better at love. Anybody. If you have the desire, there's resources, there's therapists, there's coaches. It literally starts with a decision. It literally starts with you saying, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. Or my partner and I were struggling and it's bigger than us. And this relationship matters so much more to me for me to let the end of it be due to a skills issue. I have to be a lifelong learner of my partner. So if I'm going to be a lifelong learner of my partner, I need to know how to become better at love. I need to get these tools and these skills.
That is commitment. That is a commitment.
Yeah.
And that comes with a lot of grace
and flexibility.
Yeah. So before we start to answer some questions, like what the people will want to know, I wanted to get your perspective on, like, just being a family therapist, marriage and family therapist, and being married yourself. What do you observe within yourself that even with all the tools that you have is just like a byproduct of marriage?
That's a good one. Emotional and like physio regulation is important. When I communicate with my husband, I'm talking to him as his wife, not as his therapist, not as art. I'm not doing the work for both of us. I don't have the capability. And so my emotional reactions and the physical symptoms I'm experiencing when we're, talking about a disagreement or anything like that, I still have to manage all of that. Or else I will shut down. Or else I will, because I'm a human. You know what I mean? And this is all regular, it's all normal. I think people are like, oh, but you're a therapist, it doesn't matter. I'm invested in my clients and them doing the work, but my investment is not greater than theirs. Sometimes my investment in my relationship can be greater than what my partner's feeling in that moment. You know what I mean? So it's just like if I made the choice to be in this relationship, and so there's no like I can back down, but I experience a direct consequences of not showing up. Yeah, but in marriage, I am a wife. I am not your therapist. Because I be shutting down. I do.
Yeah. No, it's a good question to ask because, like, I'm a lawyer by profession, and so the way that sometimes I argue in relationship, my constant feedback before I started to address it was like, I am not your client.
Let me tell you something.
In my mind, I'm like, how do I switch this off? But I've really learned to, like, I had to work on that.
I mean, he says that. He's like, stop therapizing me. And I'm just like, that's not a word, and that's not what I'm doing. But what I am trying, it's not a word, and that's not what I'm doing. But I think in my efforts to be curious, and I'll ask questions. And we've gone to couples therapy before, right? And some of the stuff you're teaching us, I know already. But it doesn't mean that I make a conscious effort to remember and to apply it in my own marriage. Because what you learn is also dependent on your partner learning it so that they can engage with you. Because if you do not slow down, you will continuously operate in the same process that you've always operated in.
And I love that you say that too. One, I want to say just off the bat, like, I am a very strong advocate for therapy and for couples therapy, even before marriage. Even if there's no real like issue in your relationship per se, I'm such a strong advocate of it because there's so much about yourself that you will learn in relationship. Having that third person reflect back to you, things about yourself, about your partner, about the system, the dynamic. I just think it's so important. And the constant reflection within self, like how you just described, showing up to conflict, getting the feedback, taking the step back, and just each of us as individuals learning how to do that in general in life, to just constantly be, reflect back to ourselves. How am I being? What is my feedback? what's coming back to me. And I think that we live in a world that is so, there's such thumpers of like protect my peace and like all this social media stuff, which is what I want to get into next. Like we live in a modern world, which is very different from the traditional world that our grandparents or our parents may have grown up in love and relationship. And I feel like the modern world sometimes robs us of like the ability to navigate conflicts and stuff like that. So I wanted to get your thought process.
I think there's like a pendulum swing, right? Because like way back when, a lot of people just didn't talk about it. Like grandparents' generation, I think what Gen X, they just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, whatever's your business is your business, right? And the impact of that, I feel like on millennials is that, okay, we don't have a plan. We don't have a guide because it was so much like suffer in silence. Or even if you're thriving, it's just like the optics. You don't know what it takes. No one said, okay, like step 1, step 2, it's just, okay, we're just winging it. Like if it looks like this, then I guess this is how it's supposed to feel, right? And then you have like, as you're going to Gen Z, it's like, okay, well, protect my peace, which is, if someone is using that, it's usually as a way to not be accountable to change and to working through. So how can you have that stance in a relationship? Because then you automatically position yourself opposite of your partner. I think social media can be considered like the third person in the relationship based off of its impact, because of how much attention people give to it or give their attention to it, and also how much influence it has on expectations. Relationship goals, people talk about all the time. I don't have, I know people talk about relationship goals, and I think every relationship should have goals. However, when you allow the influence of what other people are saying are the goals, then you are now positioned as like, okay, I'm comparing my partner to these goals. I'm comparing me to these goals. I'm comparing, it don't look like this, so it must be not. When people compare, they compare to find all the bad things.
Yeah.
It's not the great things. So now you're sowing seeds of discontent.
And like you rightfully said, it's based on an image, because that's what social media is. It's just a front-facing image or showcase of what love is, and relationship and love is so much more than just the image. In fact, I think the image might be the last thing, on this whole. But we start first there. What do you think are some of the things that no longer serve us as women in love and relationship?
I would say being okay with questioning and challenging those feel-good statements, right? I think before, when they say, just, you feed a man and you'll get to his heart or whatever. And there's a lot of women who lived in who lived inside of that mindset. I'm gonna do all the things for him, right? And it becomes a shackle for them, because it's just like, I can do all these things and it still wasn't enough to keep a man, or be his peace. Like I want for women to respect their boundaries, where they're not trying to be everything for someone else, because you can't, even though the world tells you. And then you get in a perpetual cycle where you feel like you're failing constantly, day in and day out, because you're listening to this message that you're supposed to be superwoman. And if you're not good enough. And I see that in the women who, sit virtually on my virtual therapy couch, who are just like, he wants this and this and this from me, but I don't have it anymore. And I'm tired and I have kids and I'm the exec and I'm in these orgs and I'm trying to do all these things and I'm tired and I'm broken down. And it's just like, you don't have to live that way. You can redefine having it all. It doesn't need to mean you have everything all at once, right? And if we don't challenge and question these mindsets, it just becomes a different shackle that looks different. that appears to be different from previous generations, but it's still all the same.
Do you want from men to complement that?
To be aware and do. To be aware
and do.
To be aware and do. To be aware that this world is set up to support you and your needs, and that there's so much. If there's a woman in your life, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of things that happen in your life because a woman does it and you don't even recognize that it's happening for the betterment of you. So it's kind of like the invisible work that goes towards making your life more convenient. I want you to be aware of that, to show appreciation for that. The issue is not necessarily that they don't want to do all that. I want you to be aware, to show gratitude, and then to do the same thing for me. To think about me and my needs and what could make things a little bit more convenient for me. Because then if I'm doing that for you and you're doing that for me, oh, you have my back.
And it's not necessarily like a male-female question, because partners come in all shapes, forms, and sizes and stuff. But
identities.
And identities. But it's really about a balance of the roles, right? And it's about just, to me, every time I hear it, it comes back down to just being better humans, being in better relationship with each other. And you could correct me if you see it differently, but just the more compassion that you can have for someone else, the more you can think of someone outside of yourself. If both people are doing that, then you're building more of a balanced relationship.
Well, I don't think that there can be one.
Okay, let's hear you.
Like, I know people talk like work-life balance. Like, I'd rather say alignment, because certain things and people have to be prioritized. And you have to understand that sometimes that priority goes longer than what you're comfortable with and want to do. That sometimes someone's career needs does take priority for a bit of time. I know Michelle Obama was talking about how, like, when Barack was in, his office, they knew it was going to be 8 years. But then there's also expectations afterward, right? Or like when they had their children, and those first 10 years were the rockiest because, I mean, you have 2 kids, how her career took a backseat. And so it's kind of like, if I see my partner and I'm able to see, like, okay, they're making this choice for our family, because sometimes you do make team decisions. What can I do to show that I am grateful? And so alignment is everything. Being able to communicate. You can say, you know what, like, you've been taking a lot of these meetings, okay, and we haven't had a date night. So let's go ahead and sit and talk about when our next date night is, right? Oh, you've been out of town these work trips. So let's figure out what we can do with the kids. Can I join you on a work trip? Like, we need to recenter ourselves, because life is going to life, right? But with that, how can you position your relationship so that it's a priority?
So let's talk about what builds a relationship, right? And we're gonna deal with like the single people now, and then we're gonna go to marriage, because I want to talk about also in marriage, like, how do you know when to stay, when to go, and not just in marriage, but in relationship, when to stay, when to go, and the big F word, which is forgiveness, right? That's where we're going. But right now, for the people who don't have nobody and who don't in no relationship and they're looking for love, right? How do we build a relationship? Does it start with a list? Like, where do we start?
I do this exercise with a few of my clients who are dating, and I tell them, write down all the things you want in a relationship. What do you want in a partner? Write it down. And then I say, okay, because it's important to validate your wants and your desires. What it is that you want.
Being specific in this.
Super specific. Super specific. But like, it's a range, right? There's some broad things and there's like super specific things. I'm like, I want you to really imagine if your partner was standing in front of you. Right? So you have looks and you have character. Right? What do they do? What do they look like? How do they engage with family? All that. We imagine the perfect person, right? Okay. I want you to look at this list, and I want you to go ahead and highlight all your non-negotiables. Say, okay, this is what you believe that you need. Now let's go ahead and talk about it. Why is this a need for you? Because when you're able to sit with yourself and say, okay, These are all my wants and my desires, but these are the things that I need. Now let me become curious. What is it tied to? What is it connected to? Because a lot of times what I'll get is like, oh, because like my mom or my dad was like this, and I said I never want a partner like that. Or my mom is like this, and I she has to have that, right? I'm like, does she? Because do you want a partner? Do you want a parent? Right? So it start connecting your needs to past experiences, or what you see on social media.
Questioning your needs as to why your needs are your needs.
Why your needs are your needs? What's the backstory? Because they're not your needs just because. What's your backstory, right? Figure out based off of these needs, which are fine. Let's figure out a percentage. Let's say 70-30. If they have 70% of this and 30% of not, what would that look like, right? Let's say 50-50. And then they start refining the list. So it gets smaller and smaller with time. Let's go ahead and figure out what's your top 3. This is not like, oh, you're not going to get what you want, so just pick 3 things. But it's like really, really see like what it is that you want to, who it is that you're trying to live with. And what really, really matters. Like if you're not a stickler on height, then it's not. Then it's a want, and it's okay. Okay, if a certain financial lifestyle is a need, where is that connected to? Okay, safety. You want to feel safe. You want to feel financially secure. Great. Or you really love traveling, and that's something that fuels your heart. Well, if you love traveling, does that mean your partner have to travel too, or does that mean that they're okay with you traveling? Great. So then that becomes a want versus a need. Oh, they need to understand that like something happens to my parents, they're living with us. That's a need. That's something that's not going to change. You have to become curious about your needs.
Yes, I like that. I mean, and I think that goes even if you end up dating without a list. Let's say you haven't done this exercise and you end up dating or you fall into dating, to still do that because it really gets clear on what, as you say, your needs are. What makes you tick, where your joy is going to come from, and how ultimately to succeed. Because if you have these inherent non-negotiables that you've never explored, then you're just going to keep bumping up against with your partner and not knowing why, not having the awareness, I think that's really powerful. So we have that.
And then we go to flexible and then non-flexible, right? And then we like, okay, bet. Because the idea of the list is to tell you more about yourself than it is about the other person. So you can start figuring out what it is that you really want and why it is that you want it. Because some people is like, if you don't have 100% of this, you're done. It's like, really? Are you sure? Because you'll end up alone. That's not what you want. You gotta leave space for people to grow too.
So building a relationship, we made this list, and so this is a better way to identify the person. You start dating. Is there a particular way to date?
It's whatever makes sense for that person. I know some people do apps, some people don't do apps. Some people are like, I need a direct referral. Like my friend needs to be able.
I'm gonna need a direct referral. I always need a direct referral.
I need a direct referral. I need somebody that we mutually know that can speak on your character and who you are as a person. And I'm like, well, there's pros and cons with that because they can speak on you as a friend, but not necessarily as a partner.
That is true.
So it's that. And I also don't like, what's your boundaries around dating? Like, you're not kissing on the first date, or are you okay with kissing on the first date? Do you have a thought about, okay, I need to hear from you the next day, or you're not going to ask him out, or you need to figure out what your boundaries are, because those boundaries contribute to behaviors. And sometimes unexpressed boundaries, it automatically means unmet needs. If you're not a person that's going to do the first call, let them know, like, okay, well, I'll wait for you to call me. And like, oh, I don't want to say that. They should know. No.
I love that you said that, because I was just about to say.
They can't not just know. Like, they're not you. Everybody has expectations. Everybody has their own dating history. There's dating scripts, right? You have your script and they have theirs. And there may be some similar lines, but it's not an identical script.
Let's talk a bit about boundaries, because a lot of times people in general, outside of relationship, even in my coaching and stuff like that, I find that people have a hard time implementing boundaries, right? It's a hard thing where they either don't know how to vocalize it. It feels like they're being harsh, or they don't want to be disliked, or they feel like they can't voice it.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we explain to someone out there who how important boundaries is and how honorable?
I love the way that you phrase the second part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, boundaries is honoring thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Like boundaries is about keeping you safe,
Mm-hmm.
keeping yourself safe.
Mm-hmm.
And not safe in the protective aspect, but it's just like I honor myself and my emotional peace, and my mental peace, my physical peace by having boundaries. Because that's how I want to treat myself. And that's information I'm giving to somebody else to let them know how I want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
In dating, you can't control what people do.
Mm-hmm.
Just period. You can't control what people do, but you can give them information of what you want,
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do, what you're not okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And if they respond to the boundary, then oh, okay, this person shows signs that they can respect me and how I want to show up in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't, it's like, okay, that's information.
Mm-hmm.
They're not respecting your boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
You told them, don't call me after 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and they still do. They show up at your house unannounced. Or you say, hey, like if they're non-communicative and you tell them that communication is important to you, and the caveat with that, because some people are like, oh, they have poor communication skills, da da da. The caveat with that is, okay, they may not get it right all the time, but they're trying, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's behaviors that support change or intent.
Right.
There's behaviors that support intent.
And this goes back to what you originally said between competence and
Character.
Where does grace meet boundaries? Because it's easy going back to boundaries where it's important to honor yourself and honor your needs and all these different things. But it could very easily go to the protect your peace kind of thing. I'm gonna protect my peace. These are my boundaries. You don't respect my boundaries, kind of thing. But where does boundaries meet grace?
I think it's not that I think it's a conduit of it. It's in it already, because if I'm expressing my boundaries to you,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I'm trying to keep myself safe, but I'm also communicating to you that I want to be in relationship with you.
Right.
I have a desire to be in relationship with you,
Mm-hmm.
but I can only be in relationship with you this way that
Right.
keeps me safe.
Mm-hmm.
If you respect me and you want to be in relationship with me as well, you're going to try.
And what about the people that feel bullied by boundaries?
Well, that's a personal problem.
Sounds like a personal problem.
And I say it's a personal problem, meaning it's not my responsibility of how you take on my boundary, how you perceive my boundary. Because if I am communicating it as respectful as I can,
Respect.
as respectful in kindness and in love, I'm not weaponizing my boundary, and you still take it wrong,
right?
And let's say that was my intent, but my impact, it landed wrong. And that person's like, why are you talking to me like that? And you're like, well, how was I talking with you? How did you perceive it? Right. You can say, you know what, that wasn't my intent. I'm just letting you know that, like, the way that you spoke with me, I didn't appreciate that. And in all fairness, if we're gonna continue talking and getting to know each other, I would really appreciate it if you can change that up. Like, do you feel like you're able to do that? And they're like, yeah, my bad, cool. They're like, nah, man, okay. Because then it becomes, do I not know how to do this, or can I do this? Am I willing to learn? Because I want this person in my life that bad.
Right. So we built the relationship. We found it. We dating. Right.
Real bad.
We're approaching. Yeah, real bad. We approaching marriage. How do we know when something is right for marriage?
The process of becoming one, it's not taught, right? It's not taught. And I think it's a taken for granted reality that once you get married, you're one. That's not the case. You have to create and build oneness, right? But I will say that when you are seriously dating and you think about engagement, there's this imagination that's running wild. Like, wow, like I can't wait. Like, what is it like to marry this person? Like, or I wonder how married life is going to be like. Or I wonder how our kids are going to be like. The our, that highlights an intention of oneness. there's a lot of I and my's.
Mm-hmm. It goes to what's in the heart.
What's in the
That,
heart?
yeah, it's an
What's the
indication of
what?
what's in the
Yeah,
heart. Yeah.
what? Because at that point, you don't really know the hows, but there's still a desire to,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to note that if the topic of marriage is brought up, that the person's not shying away or, dismissing it. It's like, yeah, babe, like they're reciprocating the intent and the desire.
So you ripe for marriage. There's a sense of oneness. People are going in the right directions, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get into marriage.
Life.
You live in life, right? And as you know, as two humans being together, there's a possibility of conflict and there's a heartbreak,
Possibility, inevitability.
inevitability of conflict, but also of heartbreak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So something happens in the relationship. How do you know when to forgive and to continue building versus forgiving and moving on?
There's always opportunity for forgiveness. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be, if you choose to be married or in partnership with someone, that means you're choosing to forgive them for
Mm-hmm.
being human.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be with you, flaws and all. That means I got to forgive you, flaws and all.
Mm-hmm.
I can not forgive you,
Mm-hmm.
but then that starts to deteriorate the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to poison it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're deciding to end the relationship or to end the marriage, thinking about, is this a decision that's based off of character or competency?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Have I gotten to this point where my partner is not showing up for me because they don't desire to show up for me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is there any abuse?
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any infidelity
Mm-hmm.
that there's no desire to do the repair work?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the people, what I've come to see is that people will forgive a lot.
Yeah.
Right? But forgiveness comes with the repair work.
Right.
And that's what people don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to commit to doing the repair work and the things that they need to do in order to regain their partner's trust or to rebuild the trust. And this is outside of infidelity, and there's all types of, there's 5 different types, like financial,
Right.
opportunistic, sexual, it's like emotional,
Right.
and so, and I think people usually think about, oh, if you're going to end the relationship and you go biblical wise,
Right.
like physical abuse and infidelity, but there's other reasons, right? Feeling like you're alone in this marriage, emotional abandonment, you don't give your partner what they need because you don't desire to, then that's an indicator for me like you don't desire to be in a relationship. Or there's something else happening that you're not communicating.
Right.
Because it's really hard to hear that your partner needs help or see that your partner needs help and you're like,
yeah. Yeah. It means that there's something
there.
Yeah. How important is having, conversations about finances, about sex, about faith? Like how as a family therapist, is it something that you advise?
I think with this question, a lot of people think about like there needs to be an order, right? Before your marriage, like you gotta talk about like family and if you want kids and I think there's some credit to that, right? Like, okay, see, before you commit to this person, yeah, let's figure out what their values are. Let's figure out what their financial history or thoughts are on finances, right? Let's figure out their thoughts about division of labor, right? Let's figure out communication style. I would say those 4 topics are like the foundational topics that we talk about in and sexual intimacy, the 5 that we talk about like in my premarital courses, right? But those conversations don't start and then stop. They evolve because people evolve and it changes. Someone's financial landscape before they're married versus like year 10 can look different. Someone's thoughts about division of labor can look different in terms of domestic chores, who does what, do we bring in help, right? Those things change. I know people talk about like, okay, if somebody doesn't want kids and you want kids, don't jump into it because people don't change. I would probably agree with that because people who don't want to have kids make it very known. I think that's really important. But like, how if you do have kids, how you parent them, what you talk about before you have kids, and when you have that actual kid, looks different. Be willing to be transparent,
right,
and vulnerable as the conversations come up versus we had them one time and that's it.
right.
Or we went to premarital counseling and then that's it.
So it comes back down to just being in constant communication.
Be a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
A lifelong, because needs change.
Mm-hmm.
Who I was as a sexual person when I got married to what we're going on 5 years this year, it changes. Needs changes. Bodies change. People are going to premarital counseling if they even go, and it's still not giving them applicable tools.
Right.
It's still, don't go to bed angry. Do you know that people have different processing times? That you can still go to bed angry and still love your partner, and still communicate with your partner, and still make a plan to resolve things the next day, versus let me force myself or let me suppress my feelings so I don't go to bed angry. Okay, so you wake up bitter. Bet.
I mean, listen, I think love, as we said at the beginning of this, I think love is such a abstract thing, and there's no one size fit all. Like there's no one size fit all. But I believe so strongly in communication and about asking all the things that we spoke about today, in understanding what your needs are, in finding uh in being a lifelong learner of your partner, and going to therapy and opening discussion on all these different things, because nobody teaches us how to be in relationship, and I feel like the things that we've discussed here are just like guidelines and ways to help navigate life and talk about the things that maybe you don't always talk about. So what would you say for couples who are searching for a healthy relationship or want to be in a healthy relationship? What's important for you to be? What's important for you to do in order to become that?
I think for couples, it's important that they be lifelong learners of each other.
We gonna say it 10,000 times, guys.
Be lifelong learners of each other, and part of that is offering grace and flexibility, and not putting a lid on your partner, and not saying, "Well, I know you're always like this," or "You never do." The always and the nevers and the shoulda and the wouldas and the couldas will keep you trapped. Respect your partner's growth. Respect the pace of their growth, so that you guys can become the people that you want to be inside of your relationship and for each other. I think so many people get lost in, I'm trying to be the person that you need me to be versus the person that I am. And then loving me as that person. Because how beautiful it is to know that, yes, I decided to commit to you for the rest of my life out of everybody else in this world. And I still have the space and freedom to learn me, to understand me while in partnership with you. And that you still love me through it. And even when you don't like me at certain points, that you're still committed to me being the best version of me. Because that's the most important relationship that I have.
So, I mean, I feel like you said it 10 million trillion times. But if you were to give, just outside of anything that we've said here, your best relationship advice?
My best relationship advice is to slow down.
I like that.
Slow down. To slow down. Because when you slow down and you take a beat, you can explore options. And you can think about, if I say this, if I do this, how does it impact my partner? How does it impact me? How does it impact our relationship? How does it impact what we're trying to do and build? Slowing down allows you to not operate out of your default. It allows you to remember, I have another choice. If I've learned the skills to become a lifelong learner of my partner, it allows me to remember my partner is my ally, not my adversary. Slowing down allows you to say, okay, where am I in this moment? How am I feeling? am I emotionally dysregulated?
Mm.
Because if I understand where I am right now, that will give me information about how I choose to deal with my partner. Babe, let me just say our code word that we've already established. That means that we just need to take like a 10-20 minute break to cool down so that I don't say anything that I would regret. Not because my intention is to hurt you, but because I'm operating so quickly, I'm not thinking thoroughly. Right? Slowing down is preventative and it's proactive. It respects your partner's boundaries. It respects your boundaries.
I like that. Anything else that you would like want to leave in this space?
I would say that I want people to know that it's okay to not know all of the things. And I think there's a lot of shame that prevents people from seeking help. A lot of shame. People are just like, oh, we shouldn't be still arguing about this. We shouldn't still be struggling through this. Or we shouldn't, even if you have gone to therapy before, go back.
Yeah.
Go back. Because you can have communication issues at one level and then at another higher level, there's a different type of communication issue. Go back. Because shame will keep you separated.
Yep. And stuck.
And stuck.
I love that. And I think, going to therapy and is having wisdom. That's what I think it is. Like understanding that you yourself have blind spots. Your partner has blind spots and the dynamic will have blind spots. Just having a third person be like a sounding board or just be another person that you can trust that has the tools, I think is wisdom. It's like giving yourself the best shot,
Like visually, how I've described it, especially to some of my male clients, I'm like, if you go to the gym and you work out on your own, you'll get some gains, right? Yeah. But I'm like, the reason why people do personal training is because as you're doing the movements, there's somebody on the outside saying, hey, if you sit back on your heels as you're doing the squat, you'll get more definition in your thighs. Yeah. They're able to have an outside perspective that will help you. Okay, if you do this, if you pivot a little bit, you'll see your results faster, right? You'll go further faster. Pastor Darius talks about that. You'll go further faster. So you can do it on your own, but eventually you'll hit a ceiling versus if you have an outside help who can see the whole picture. Say, pivot. Yeah. Do this.
Yeah. So call Bev, guys. Call Bev. What book? What's a good book?
A good before book?
We go. What's a good book that everybody should read?
Attached.
Oh, Attached. I've never read that book.
Yeah, it's about attachment styles.
Well, Bev, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I hope that we said all the things and did all the things and that y'all are clearer on how to find love or deal with love or navigate love.
Keep love.
Keep love.
Yeah.
To keep love.
Yeah.
I love that. So I hope that this episode provided a lot of value for you. Of course, we're going to have Bev's information below. So if you will need to reach out to her or you want to check her out a little bit more, go ahead and do that. I will also attach the link to the book Attached. So you can take a look into that. But guys, go out into this world and just be the best versions that you can be. Do the best that you can so that you can become that best in love, best in relationship, best for yourself.
Right.
Amen.
Amen. A lifelong learner of self and partners.
Yes. I love it. Thank you, Bev.
Thank you. You're awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Until next time.